The first time Josh accidentally walked into my room at 3 in the morning, I honestly believed him. I was half asleep, face smashed into my pillow, when I heard my door creak open. Not slam, not knock, just that slow, cautious creak, like whoever it was didn't want to wake me. At first, my brain tried to explain it away. Old apartment, thin walls. Maybe I'd left the door unlocked again. I was still drifting when I felt it, the mattress dipping slightly, like someone had leaned their weight onto the edge of my bed. That's when my eyes snapped open. Josh froze. We stared at each other in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside my window. He was standing there in gray sweatpants, barefoot, one hand still on the doorframe like he'd been caught mid-escape. "Shit," he whispered. "Sorry, man. Wrong room." I pushed myself up on one elbow, heart racing way faster than it should have been. "Josh." "Yeah," he said quickly. "I thought this was the bathroom." I blinked at him. The bathroom was down the hall, past his room, past the kitchen. There was no logical universe where my bedroom was the bathroom, but I was still too groggy to argue. "It's fine," I muttered. "You good?" "Yeah, totally. My bad." He backed out, pulling the door shut behind him with exaggerated care. I lay there for a solid 10 minutes afterward, staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was nothing. Just a mistake. Just Josh being Josh, slightly buzzed, slightly dumb, slightly too comfortable in the apartment we shared. Josh had moved in about 3 months earlier. Mutual friend, split rent, no drama. He was easy to live with, clean enough, quiet enough, the kind of guy who walked around shirtless without realizing the effect it had on other people. Not that I was thinking about that. I rolled over, forced myself back to sleep, and forgot about it. At least I tried to. The second time happened 4 nights later. This time I wasn't asleep. I'd been lying on my back, scrolling through my phone, when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow ones, careful ones. I remember thinking it was weird because Josh usually stomped like he was allergic to stealth. My door opened again. I didn't say anything. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. Maybe some part of me already knew this wasn't really an accident anymore. Josh stepped inside, stopping just past the doorway. He stood there longer this time, like he was listening, like he was checking if I was breathing differently. "Andrew?" he whispered. I waited a beat. Then, "Yeah." He flinched. "Damn," he breathed. "Sorry. Thought you were asleep. You need something?" There was a pause. I could almost hear his brain scrambling. No. I mean, I thought I heard something in here. In my room. Yeah, like a noise." I sat up, sheets sliding down my chest. "You sure you're in the right place this time?" He laughed too quickly, too forced. "Yeah, guess I'm just tired." He didn't leave right away. He stood there, hands shoved into his pockets, eyes flicking around my room like he'd never seen it before. We'd hung out in here plenty of times. Drinks, movies, late-night conversations that got a little too personal after a couple beers. Finally, he nodded to himself. "Night, man. Night." The door closed again. This time, I didn't go back to sleep. I lay there replaying it over and over. The hesitation, the way he'd said my name, the fact that he hadn't immediately turned around when he realized his mistake. By the third time, a week later, there was no pretending. I woke up to the feeling of someone standing way too close to my bed. Josh was already inside the room, and this time, he didn't say anything at all. I didn't move right away. That was the strangest part. Not the fact that Josh was in my room again, not the way my heart was pounding like I'd just been caught doing something wrong, but the fact that my body stayed perfectly still. Like if I didn't react, whatever was happening might reveal itself. The room was dark enough that I couldn't see his face clearly, just the outline of him standing near my bed. I could hear his breathing, slow but not steady, like he was trying to control it. "Josh," I said quietly. He didn't answer. I sat up this time, pulling the blanket higher around my waist. "You okay, man?" Another pause. Then he shifted his weight, the floorboard giving a soft creak under his foot. "Yeah," he said, but his voice was low, careful. "Sorry. I thought you were asleep." I rubbed my eyes, buying myself a second. "You've said that before." He exhaled through his nose, almost like a laugh. but there was no humor in it. Guess I'm not great at knowing when to leave people alone. That landed heavier than it should have. He finally turned toward the door, hand reaching for the handle. For a second, I thought that was it, another half explanation, another quiet exit, another night of me lying awake replaying everything. But then he stopped. Still facing away from me, he said, "Does it bother you? Does what bother me? That I come in here." The question hung in the air between us. Honest. Exposed. Way too real for 3 in the morning. I mean, I said slowly, "It's a little weird." He nodded like he'd expected that. "Yeah. But," he added, glancing over his shoulder. I swallowed. "But if something's wrong, you could just knock or talk to me." He turned fully then, leaning back against the door. I could just make out his expression now. Eyes darker than usual, jaw tense, shoulders tight like he was bracing himself. "I don't know how to start that conversation," he admitted. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "You're doing a pretty intense version of not starting it." That actually got a real smile out of him. Brief, crooked, gone too fast. "Yeah," he said. "Fair." Neither of us moved. The silence stretched, thick and loaded, until it felt like something had to break. "Josh," I said, quieter now. "What's going on?" He looked at me for a long moment. Really looked. Like he was deciding how much damage the truth might do. "I don't sleep well anymore," he said finally. "I wake up and I don't know where I am for a second. And somehow I end up here." "Why here?" His jaw tightened. "Because you're awake," he said. "Even when you're asleep." I frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It does to me." Another pause. He pushed himself off the door and took a step toward the bed. Not close, but closer than before. "I'm not trying to freak you out," he added quickly. "I swear. It's quiet in here. It feels safe." Safe. The word settled somewhere deep in my chest, warm and dangerous at the same time. "If it really bothers you," he said, voice softer now, "I'll stop. I just needed to know." I should have said yes. I should have told him it crossed the line, that it needed to end, that roommates didn't do this kind of thing. That normal people didn't stand half-dressed in each other's bedrooms in the middle of the night having conversations like this. Instead, I heard myself say, "It bothers me when you don't explain." His eyes flicked up to mine. "So explain," I added. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he sat down on the edge of my bed. My pulse thudded in my ears. "During the day," he went on. "At night, when I'm trying not to, when I really should be." I didn't interrupt. I wasn't sure I could trust my voice if I did. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted, "or what I want. I just know that when I wake up and my head's a mess, this is where my feet take me." He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers like he was grounding himself. "I tell myself it's an accident," he said quietly, "but I don't think it is anymore." The room felt smaller, the air thicker. "Josh?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Are you saying dash? I don't need you to label it." He cut in, fast and almost desperate. "I just needed you to know I'm not sleepwalking." We sat there, inches apart, the truth finally out in the open between us. Neither of us moved. Neither of us pulled away. And that's when I realized something that scared me more than him being in my room ever had. I wasn't waiting for him to leave. The next morning was worse than the night. Josh wasn't in the kitchen when I woke up, which somehow made everything heavier. Normally he'd be there, making coffee like the world was simple and uncomplicated. Instead, the apartment was quiet in that too quiet way that makes you hyper-aware of everything. I poured myself coffee I didn't really want and leaned against the counter, replaying the way he'd sat on my bed, the way his voice had dropped when he admitted he wasn't sleepwalking, the fact that he'd stayed, the fact that I'd let him. When he finally came out of his room, I felt it before I saw him. That shift in the air. He was wearing a hoodie this time, hood down, hair still messy like he hadn't slept much either. "Morning," he said. "Morning." Too normal. Both of us pretending like something massive hadn't cracked open between us. He grabbed a mug, filled it, then hesitated. "About last night." Here it was. "Yeah," I said. "About that." He looked at me then, really looked. Not flirty. Not defensive. Just open. I meant what I said, he told me. And I don't expect anything from you. I just didn't want to keep lying. I appreciate that, I said, and I meant it. But you can't keep coming into my room like that. He nodded immediately. I know. I won't. I swear. There was relief there, real relief, but also something else. Disappointment, maybe, or fear. Friends? He asked, holding up his mug like a peace offering. I smiled faintly. Friends. And for a few days, that was it. No midnight visits. No lingering in doorways. No accidental brushes in the hallway. Josh gave me space so deliberately it almost hurt. He'd retreat to his room when I entered a space, like he was afraid of crossing another invisible line, which was stupid because the line was already gone. It happened on a Friday night. We were both a little buzzed, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, watching something neither of us was paying attention to. The kind of silence that wasn't awkward, just loaded. Josh laughed at something on the screen, then shook his head. I've been an idiot, you know? I glanced at him. That's not news. He snorted. I mean about everything. I waited. I've always been good at avoiding shit that scares me, he said. Jokes, girls, noise, keeps me from thinking too hard. And now, I asked. And now I walk into my roommate's room at 3 a.m. because that's somehow easier. I set my beer down. You could have just talked to me. I know. He looked at me. I wanted to see if you'd push me away. And you didn't. The room felt warm, smaller. You didn't push me away either, I said quietly. He shifted closer on the couch, not touching, but close enough that I was suddenly very aware of his knee near mine. I don't want to screw this up, he said. You matter to me. Josh? I said, my heart pounding now. You're already screwing it up. He laughed nervously. Yeah, because you're acting like this is a one-sided thing. His brow furrowed. Is it not? I took a breath. A real one. No, I said. It's not. That did it. Something in his expression broke. Not in a bad way. Like tension snapping after being wound too tight for too long. You should have said something, he murmured. You should have knocked. He smiled. Then, slowly, like he was giving me every chance to stop him, he reached out and rested his hand on my knee. Not grabbing. Not pushing. Just there. The contact sent a shock straight through me. Still okay? He asked. I nodded. That was all the permission he needed. He leaned in, stopping inches from my face, eyes flicking to my mouth like he wasn't sure where to look. I could feel his breath now, warm and uneven. This doesn't feel accidental, he said softly. No, I whispered. It really doesn't. When he kissed me, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, careful, like he was memorizing something he didn't want to forget. And suddenly, all those nights he'd stood in my doorway made sense. 2 roommates. Same couch we'd argued over Netflix on. Same space where nothing like this was supposed to happen. But it wasn't awkward at all. Felt inevitable. Like we'd both been walking toward that moment from opposite ends of the apartment and finally met in the middle. Josh pulled back first, forehead resting against mine. Okay, he said quietly. That just made things way more complicated. I huffed a soft laugh. You say that like things were simple before. He smiled, but there was tension underneath it now. Awareness. The kind that changes how you see someone permanently. Too close to be casual. His arm rested along the back of the couch, not touching me, but there if I leaned back even a little. And I was painfully aware of how easy it would be to close that distance again. I meant what I said, he told me. I don't want to rush this just because we finally stopped pretending. I nodded. Good. Because I don't think either of us knows what this even is yet. He let out a breath, relieved. Yeah, that. We sat there like that for a while, talking in half sentences, about how long he'd been feeling restless, about how I'd noticed the looks before the late-night visits ever started, about how both of us had assumed the other one was off-limits for different reasons. At some point, without either of us really deciding it, his hand found mine. Not interlaced, just fingers brushing, resting together like it was the most natural thing in the world. And that was the moment that scared me, because it felt normal. Too normal. Hey, I said eventually. We should probably stop before we do something we can't undo. He glanced at our hands, then back up at me. You already think this is something we can't undo? I didn't answer right away. That's not a no, he added gently. No, I admitted. It's not. He squeezed my hand once, then let go, a deliberate choice, and I respected the hell out of him for it. I'm gonna head to bed, he said. Alone. Like a normal person. Night, Andrew. Night, Josh. I didn't sleep much. Not because I wanted him to come into my room again. That part was over. But because my brain wouldn't shut up. Every shared look, every almost touch, every time I told myself I was imagining things came rushing back with new meaning. Around 3 a.m., I heard him move in his room. Not toward my door. Just pacing. The next few days were charged. We were careful. Painfully so. No touching beyond accidental brushes. No being alone together for too long. Like if we kept the rules tight enough, we could keep control. It didn't work. It broke on a Sunday afternoon of all times. We were cleaning the apartment, music on, windows open. Normal. Domestic. Josh was standing on a chair wiping the top of a shelf when it wobbled. Shit dash. I stepped forward instinctively to steady him. His breath hitched. He looked down at me, eyes dark, jaw tight, like he was holding himself back from something. Neither of us moved. You good? I asked, my voice low. Yeah, he said, not sounding convinced. I should have let go. Instead, he stepped down, close enough that there was no space left between us. No pretending this was accidental. We're really bad at stopping, he murmured. I swallowed. You still want to? He didn't answer with words. What nobody tells you about crossing a line like that is how impossible it becomes to go back. Josh was the first to step back. Okay, he said, running a hand through his hair. We need to slow down. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted the opposite. Yeah, we do. He looked conflicted, not regretful, but thoughtful, like he was already calculating consequences. I don't want this to turn into something we only do behind closed doors, he said. Or something we pretend didn't happen. That makes two of us. We didn't talk much after that. Not because things were awkward, but because everything felt too fragile to poke it right away. He went to his room. I sat on my bed, staring at the door long after he'd closed it. That night, he didn't come into my room. Instead, I heard him laugh on the phone. A girl's voice through the wall. Casual. Familiar. And for the first time since this all started, something sharp twisted in my chest. I hated that feeling. The next morning, the apartment felt different. Not tense. Not cold. Just recalibrated. Josh was making breakfast when I walked in. He glanced up, smiled like he always did, and for a split second I wondered if I'd imagined everything. Morning, he said. Morning. He slid a plate toward me without comment. Eggs. Toast. The normal stuff. But his fingers brushed mine as I took it, and his eyes flicked up to mine, just for a second too long. Yeah. Definitely not imagined. So, he said casually, way too casually, my sister's coming over later. Just a heads up. Good to know, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. And there it was, reality creeping back in. Other people. Outside eyes. The world beyond our apartment bubble. His sister showed up that afternoon, loud and warm and completely unaware that the energy between her brother and his roommate had shifted on a fundamental level. Josh played the role effortlessly. Straight jokes. Easy charm. The version of him I'd known from the start. I watched him from the couch, trying to reconcile the guy leaning against the counter with the one who'd whispered my name like it meant something. Later, when she left, the apartment went quiet again. Josh didn't look at me right away. He leaned back against the door after locking it, exhaled slowly. I hate that I do that, he said. Do what? Flip the switch, he admitted. It's easier than explaining. I nodded. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. He looked at me then, surprised and a little guilty. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to come out, I said. I'm just asking you not to disappear. He crossed the room in 2 steps, stopping right in front of me. I'm here, he said firmly. I just need to figure out what that means. I believed him, but belief doesn't stop fear from creeping in. That night, lying in bed, I realized something else had changed too. I wasn't waiting for him to wander into my room anymore. I was waiting for him to choose me in the daylight. And I had no idea if he was ready for that. It happened in the most normal way possible. That's what made it worse. Josh and I were at the grocery store, arguing quietly about whether name brand cereal was a scam, when we ran into Mark, one of his coworkers. Tall guy, loud laugh, the kind of straight confidence that fills space without trying. Josh! Mark clapped him on the shoulder. Didn't expect to see you here, man. Josh lit up instantly. Yeah, just grabbing stuff for the week. Mark's eyes slid to me. Roommate. Josh hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. Yeah, he said. Andrew. Mark nodded. Nice. You guys live close. Same place, Josh replied. Easy. Automatic. And that was it. No lie. No truth either. Just the version that fit. On the walk home, we didn't talk much. The bags rustled between us, the city noise filling the silence. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. He hadn't done anything wrong. He wasn't obligated to explain his life to anyone. Still, something sat heavy in my chest. Back at the apartment, Josh put the groceries away like nothing had happened. Hummed to himself. Normal. Comfortable. I couldn't do it. Hey, I said. He looked up. Yeah. That pause, I said carefully. At the store. His shoulders stiffened. I didn't know what you wanted me to say, he replied. I didn't want you to say anything, I said. I just wanted to know if you even thought about it. He leaned against the counter, rubbing his face. Of course I thought about it. And I panicked, he admitted. Okay? I'm not used to my private life being real. I nodded slowly. I get that. I really do. But it felt like you were deciding whether I existed. That hit. He looked at me then. Not defensive, not confused, just honest. I'm scared, he said quietly. And I hate that it's showing up like this. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. I just said, I don't want to be something you only acknowledge when no one's watching. Silence stretched between us. Then he stepped closer. You're not, he said. You're just new. And I'm still catching up to myself. That night he knocked. Actually knocked. I opened the door to find him standing there, hands shoved into his pockets, eyes uncertain in a way I hadn't seen before. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He didn't sit on the bed this time. He stood in the middle of the room, like he needed the space to say what he'd come to say. I don't want to lose you, he said. Not as a roommate. Not as whatever this is becoming. Then don't hide me, I replied. He nodded. Once. Firm. I can't promise I'll be perfect, he said. But I don't want to live like I'm sneaking around my own apartment anymore. He reached for my hand. This time I didn't hesitate. We stood there, fingers intertwined, the weight of the choice settling between us. Not dramatic. Not explosive. The reckoning didn't come as some dramatic explosion. Came quietly, which somehow made it hit harder. Josh told his sister first. I wasn't there when it happened. He asked if I was okay with that, and I said yes, even though my stomach twisted the entire time. I spent the evening pretending to watch a movie, jumping every time my phone buzzed. When he finally came home, it was almost midnight. I heard the door close, slow footsteps, then a knock. I opened my bedroom door to find him standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes tired but clear. She knows, he said. And? I asked. He exhaled, long and shaky. She hugged me, told me she already suspected something, then asked why I looked like I'd been carrying a backpack full of bricks for the last year. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That's good. Yeah, he said softly. It is. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, and for the first time since all of this started, he didn't look torn in two directions. He looked like one person. I didn't say everything, he added, but I said enough. I said there's someone, that it's real. My chest tightened. You didn't have to dash. I wanted to, he cut in, because if I'm going to do this, I don't want to do it halfway. That night, we didn't rush anything. We talked about what this meant, about what scared him, about how I wasn't looking for a label tomorrow, just honesty today. For a while, that was enough. The real test came a week later. Josh invited a few friends over, coworkers, people he'd known for years. Beer, music, laughter filling the apartment. I hovered in the kitchen, nerves buzzing under my skin, telling myself I was being ridiculous. Then Josh came up behind me and handed me a drink. "This cool?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes. "Yeah." He stayed, not glued to my side, not making a show of it, just present, checking in, letting people see us in the same space without pretending we were strangers orbiting the same couch. At one point, Mark, the coworker from the grocery store, joked, "Man, you two are basically married with how you split chores." Josh didn't laugh it off this time. "Yeah," he said easily. "Turns out I like living with him." Something warm spread through my chest. Not fireworks, something steadier. Later, when the apartment was quiet again, Josh leaned against the counter and looked at me. "I didn't die," he said, half smiling. I laughed. "Proud of you." He stepped closer, resting his forehead against mine. "I'm proud of me too." The funny thing was, once the secret wasn't a secret anymore, the late-night visits stopped completely. Not because the need disappeared, because we didn't need them. No sneaking, no pretending to be asleep, no accidental door openings. And when I woke up one morning to find him already in my room, sunlight spilling across the bed, it wasn't confusing or scary. It was simple. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He smiled, relaxed, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe that was the biggest surprise of all. It's funny how, once everything settles, your brain finally lets you rewind. Weeks later, I caught myself lying awake in bed, staring at the same ceiling Josh used to stand under in the middle of the night. The apartment was quiet now, not the tense, holding its breath quiet from before, but the comfortable kind. The kind that means nothing is about to sneak up on you. That's when it hit me. All those accidents hadn't really been accidents at all. They were rehearsals. He'd been testing the ground before stepping on it, seeing if I'd wake up, seeing if I'd push him away, seeing if he was brave enough to want what he wanted without running from it. And I had my own version of that too, letting him stay, not calling him out the first time, pretending I didn't hear the hesitation in his voice when he said my name in the dark. We were both complicit. We just needed time to admit it. Josh shifted beside me, half awake. "You're thinking too loud," he murmured. I smiled. "Sorry. What about?" I glanced at him, the soft morning light catching in his eyes. "About how you used to, accidentally, break into my room." He groaned, burying his face in my shoulder. "I'm never living that down, am I?" "Absolutely not." He laughed, then lifted his head. "You mad about it?" I shook my head. "No. Just glad you stopped lying about why." He nodded, serious now. "Me too." Living together after that wasn't some fairy tale montage. We still argued about dishes, still needed space, still had days where the weight of everything Josh had unpacked hit him out of nowhere. But now, when he needed me, he didn't wander in half asleep, pretending not to know where he was. He knocked, or texted, or just said my name from the hallway, like he trusted I'd answer. And I always did. Sometimes I think about that first night, the way my heart raced, the confusion, the almost denial. If I could go back, would I do anything differently? Honestly, no. Because if Josh had knocked the first time, I might have told him to go away. If he'd explained himself too clearly, too soon, I might have gotten scared. Instead, we found each other in the dark, carefully, quietly, one step at a time. And maybe that's how some love stories are supposed to start. Not with certainty, but with a door opening when it shouldn't, and staying open because neither of you really wants it closed.